Hello, world. Hi. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Little Bit Different podcast with your host, Cory Sterling. What's up, everyone? I hope that you are doing great wherever it is in the world you are listening to this. I hope you're having fun. I hope you're being present. I hope you're enjoying. And I hope you're excited for an amazing episode. This one is very, very, very dear to my heart. This would fall under the category of lifestyle. And this episode is about living impulsively. Ooh, woo, woo. Yummy, yummy, yummy in my tummy. So living impulsively, maybe I'm a bit of an impulsive person. And I want to talk a little bit about my process, which is different. Remember, this podcast is called A Little Bit Different. So my process is of living and my lifestyle is different than most people that you know. And living impulsively is at the root of my lifestyle. It's at the root of the decisions that I make. And I'm excited to jump into it and share a little bit about how it works, how I came to make decisions this way, and what it sort of looks like on a daily basis. So as I've mentioned before, if you've listened, if this is your first time listening, welcome. But I try to live my lifestyle and I try to live a life where I have the freedom and the flexibility to do whatever I want, wherever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, however I want. That's my game. That's the game that I'm creating. That's the life that I have. If I have a feeling where I want to go do something, there should be no restrictions other than the necessity for Wi-Fi in order to do it. So that's something that I've been very, very intentional for a long period of time about doing. And that's important to me. And I think that's probably important to me because I think that I like when different little clues pop up or little pushes in the right direction take me somewhere, and then I'm like, oh, now I want to do this, now I want to do that, and that's just how I want to live my life. I actually don't need to justify it to anyone. That's what the way that feels right to me. But living impulsively ultimately means like that you can course correct and change the decision of where you're going or what you're doing or how you're doing it at any given point. Now, just a couple of, before I jump into it and talk a little bit about how I got to feel this way and why I feel this way and how I live this way, there is an important distinction between living impulsively and running away from things, and living impulsively and not being held accountable to things. And the way that I deal with that, because it's very easy to be like, oh, actually, I don't want to do this. I don't feel like doing this anymore, so no, I'm not going to. And let's take a very simple example of like making my bed or doing my work or being there for my clients or anything like that. What I'm talking about is at a different level. So I'm working on the assumption that all of my adult-ish responsibilities are being taken care of in the sense that I'm being a leader for my team. I'm being, a great lawyer for my clients. I'm being a great family member to my family. I'm being a great friend to my friends. And I'm being really awesome to myself. And that what I'm doing is serving me. And it's not like running away like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed this morning, so I'm just not going to do anything. Which, if that's really how you feel in the moment, that totally applies. Like you can do that once. You can do that whenever, however often you want to do it. There's no right answer for doing anything. But I just want to make this distinction that what I'm not talking about is avoiding responsibility and avoiding accountability. What I'm talking about is living a life where you're able to follow the impulses that come to you. Like you have an impulse, you have a feeling, something's drawing you somewhere, and you go with it. And we're working on the assumption that like we're normal, we're competent, high-performing adults. We're doing all those sorts of things. And then this is like the little bit of play that's involved as well. And the reason why I recently read a book by Alan Watts. Oh, I'm going to look right now to see what the name was. Alan Watts is one of my favorite spiritual teachers. And the book is called Tao for Now. Of course it is Alan Watts. Tao for Now is a book by Alan Watts. It's about Taoism. And I really got into Taoism when I was doing my yoga teacher training in Bali, my yin yoga teacher training, which is about going slow, and the yin energy, the slower energy, the more feminine energy in our lives that allows us to be malleable and flexible and not fixed for everything to be in a particular way. And what was so cool about reading Tao for Now was I was reading the book, I'm like, oh my God, I feel like I've lived so much of my life this way, but also I want to live my life more this way. And the concept of flow and going with the flow is that life has its own direction, its own wave, its own current. And how can we be as conducive as possible to effortlessly flow with that current, which will take us to all the places where we're supposed to be and live how we're supposed to be living, and not going against the current. So this concept probably came into my mind many years ago when I started listening to Esther Hicks. And she always talks about, like, in life, you're either going upstream or you're going downstream. And just think about being in a canoe and paddling upstream. And that's when, like, you're trying to force things, you're trying to make things happen, you're trying to, it's just like nothing seems to be working. You're efforting. And then going downstream is just like, I'm chilling. I am just letting this river take me wherever it goes. And when you're going downstream, you know that you're going downstream because everything's happening for you. You're in the right place at the right time. You're not trying to make anything happen. You're not doing anything. You're just like, following this impulse and going with this and making all of it happen. And all of my personal philosophies and my outlooks on life, they're constantly evolving. And I think they should be. I don't know how much fun it would be if it was just fixed, right? And I think part of the nature of flow is that everything is always changing. So there was one moment, and there's going to be a couple of like really, really big lines that I share in this episode that are really, really important to me in my outlook and how I understand life and how I design and build my life. And there was in my yin yoga teacher training in Bali, I love learning about the postures, and what I took from that training was now I'm able to lead myself in a yin yoga class. And it's sort of, teach a person to fish type of approach where, I'm here in Sayulita, Mexico. I was chilling with my friend Josh, and then I was late I was going to go to a yoga class, to a restorative class. I was late because we were chilling and having a great conversation, and I was being present to that. And I was like, I can just go to the gym and do my own yin yoga class. I'm like, that's what it gave me. But also what the training gave me was this philosophical journey and approach to Taoism and Eastern philosophies. And there was one sentence in my yoga teacher training book that stood out the most. And I remember when we did the lecture on this, all I wanted to do was talk about this the whole time. And the sentence was as follows. Your destiny is not fixed. So the line was, your destiny is not fixed. And it gave me, I have goosebumps even now as I say it. And it gave me such a shock when I read it in the book. And it's talking about how things are always changing, going with the flow. And I think when we think of destiny, it's like, I'm supposed to be this. Like, I'm supposed to be in this place and doing this thing and all that sort of stuff. But those who know me know I'm a deliberate creator. I love being a deliberate creator. And this whole idea of your destiny not being fixed, for me, felt very empowering. That in any given moment, like, hey, I'm not supposed to, I'm not a fan of supposed to. I'm not supposed to be in a place at a time and all of those sorts of things. I'm just supposed to be going with the flow and on this eternal journey of going with it and following it and letting it happen. And when I read that your destiny is not fixed, I was like, oh my God, this is the most inspiring sentence that I've read in so long. Because when we think of destiny, it's like Luke Skywalker, that, it's his destiny. You have something that you have to do and you have to follow this thing. But when you realize, like, no, my destiny is actually always changing and my only job is to follow the signs and go down the path that will bring me there, that's fun to me. That resonates for me. That's a lot of fun. So this podcast is called A Little Bit Different Podcast. What I'm talking about is not what the average person or the normal person with their lifestyle is going to be talking about. This is what works for me and what resonates for me. And I think that there's a couple important points that we have to look at when we're talking at what it means to live impulsively. And what does that look like on a daily basis? And I think the biggest one is if you can be present to what is working in your life and what is not working in your life, right? And probably if you were to stop right now and take a sip of mate and think about the different things of what is working for you, what is not working for you at this moment, probably the things that are working for you and that are going well, you're probably not trying too hard with them. Like it's probably just naturally evolving and it's just going and easy, it's light, it's fun. And then probably the things that aren't working are things that you're stressed about, that you're thinking a lot about, maybe you're worrying about, that you're really trying to make happen, that you've wanted to happen for a really long period of time. And I think that the first thing in this whole idea of living impulsively is just noticing like, hey, this is what right now at this point in time, this is what's working, this is what's not working. And once you have that grasp, then you can follow and flow more with the things that are working, and you can let go and release of the things that are not working for you. And it's sort of just as simple as that. But the real game too about all of this is, and the skill to develop is you got to be a detective, right? In the sense that you want to be a detective to notice what's working and what's not working, and realizing, trying to come up with some form of way for you to interpret the different things that are working. So I'm going to give an example. And I have, oh my God, I have too many examples about this in my life, but I'll just give an example. So now I'm in Mexico. And sorry, I'm okay. I'm going to give the example, then I want to say something that's really important as well. But now I'm in Mexico, okay? I didn't plan to come to Mexico. When I flew from Bali to Florida to go speak at the Florida Yoga Expo. And when I did that, I had my return flight to Bali booked. And I also had a plan to go to Istanbul, Turkey for 4 days, to have a little bit of time there and just explore and wander around. And I wanted to do that. When I left Bali, I had no intention. I wasn't like, okay, I'm not going back to Bali. I had full intention to come back. And then I was there were all of these things related to going back to Bali that were just like, they didn't happen. Like it just wasn't working. So like I was looking at getting a visa. I wanted to get like a 2-year visa. And I went to go for the payment and the card didn't work. And then I spoke to the person and they're like, oh, sorry, like, can you come visit us tomorrow? We're closed for today. I was like, okay, cool. I'll come in and I'll pay in person. They're like, oh, actually, we're closed today. Can you come in tomorrow? I was like, cool, I'll come in tomorrow. Supposed to go in. Something else came up that I couldn't get out of, so I couldn't go there for that. The same with everything related to the flights and with Turkey. It was just like, I booked a hotel. It was a really nice hotel. It was like 4 nights. It was a whole bunch of money. And I can tell you that if the transaction had gone through, I wouldn't have abandoned that. It was non-refundable. And it ended up being like, I made the reservation, everything's going. 2 days later, they're like, hey, for some reason, the reservation to Turkey in this hotel didn't work. Can you please try with another card? Can you do this? And then I was just like thinking, I'm like, am I like there's all of these signs about how I'm trying to do this and things just, it's not working and it's not flowing for me. And then, so I'm noticing like, oh, there's a lot of resistance and like, I'm trying to get the visa. I'm trying to book the hotel. I'm trying to organize the trip. It's just not working for me. Then I'm in Florida at the Florida Yoga Expo. I see my friend, and what do you call someone who you work with? I always forget that word, but like, yeah, he and I, we work together, but we're also friends. It's so, I love the informality of everything that I do that's work related. Anyways, my buddy Josh, who has an amazing company called the Yogapreneur Collective, he lives in Mexico in Sayulita. And I was trying to like, yo, dude, and I haven't seen him for years. It's like, hey, what's up? How are things? He's like, bro, come live with me and my family in Mexico. And just like the moment he said it, I was like, okay. I was like, yeah, that's the right way. That's what I should be doing. And then I went online that night. I was like, hey man, where do I fly in? He's like, you fly into Puerto Vallarta. And I found like a super cheap direct flight from Toronto to Puerto Vallarta, business class, like super dreamy, awesome. But the return flight, I just like couldn't get a return flight. So I was like, oh, maybe I'll just postpone Turkey and Bali. And there was just like none of that happening, none of that working. And then I was like, oh, I'm just supposed to book a one-way flight to Mexico. And like the moment I said that and I felt it, I was like, that's exactly what I should be doing. And all of the things to try to make it happen otherwise weren't working. And was going against me, but everything for that one idea of going to Mexico and getting a one-way ticket was working for me. Now, one caveat about living impulsively that I want to share, and this is super big. This is one of those, points that I said are like, we have to talk about this. You can't care what other people think about you. If you truly want to live impulsively, you can't make decisions based on how other people will react or what they'll think or what they think about you. Because I'll tell you this, most people probably think that I'm crazy, right? I'm in Bali, I'm having the best time. I love my life in Bali. I've got all these friends in Bali. I've got a community in Bali. I'm playing paddle. I'm making business connections. Everything's happening. And for me, in like one snap, in 1 second, that's all it took for me to be like, no, actually, I'm not going to go back there right now. And I spent a lot, I personally, I have an email list of all my friends who I write to and family members. And I'm like, hey guys, I love Bali. I really think it's a place that I can spend time. And I in 1 second, all of it changed. And I think that a younger version of myself would have cared. I would have been like, oh, like, what are my friends going to think of me now that I'm, I'm changing my place where I'm going again, right? Like, that's a story that I could have and a path that I could go down. Oh, like Cory, he's always changing his path and he doesn't know what he wants and whatever. And like, I've gotten so good at living my life and knowing what lights me up that I don't give a shit. I don't care what anyone thinks about me and the decisions that I make. I was just in a moment where I was like, okay, going to Mexico on a one-way ticket is what I'm supposed to do. And my destiny is not fixed. And if it feels really, really good to do this and pursue this and go for that. And I was, and now I was so lit up by it. And I think what's so important is if we're looking for a compass for these different decisions that we're making, the compass is always, how does this feel? How does this decision feel for me? So part of what we can look at is like, okay, we can notice what's working and what's not working. Like naturally, everything for Mexico is easily falling into place. I have an amazing place to stay. I have an awesome friend who I get to chill with. I get to look at his lifestyle and his family and how they live and what Mexico's like. And I've got an awesome flight and it's one way and that totally excites me. What's not working is like trying to figure everything else other than that out is not working and not naturally happening for me. And additionally, this thought and this feeling of going to Mexico on a one-way ticket and letting everything happen just lights me up like crazy. So I don't care what anyone's going to think or what anyone's going to say about me. But what I care about is how do I feel? How do I feel inside when I make this decision? And because the decision felt so good and everything was working for me to make that happen, I followed it and I didn't care what anyone thought about it. And what I will say about friends and having amazing friends, and I feel one of the areas of my life that I'm most blessed with are the friendships that I have. Every single one of my friends who I shared that I was going to Mexico with and I wasn't going back to Bali, all of them were like, amazing. That's so great. Like, I love that for you. That's exactly what you should be doing. And I wouldn't say it's reaffirming because I didn't need support from anyone to help me with that idea. But it was awesome. It was like this one decision of, and I'm going to take 2 steps back. I had planned this year originally when we switched to 2024, the plan that I had for my year was I was going to live in West Africa. So I was in Rio de Janeiro. I bumped into a friend I hadn't seen in 20 years. And when I saw her, she's like, she just moved to Brazil. We were like, this is like out of a movie. Like you don't see your friend for 20 years. You have a 2-hour conversation and you change the direction of your lives. And she just moved to Brazil with her family. And I was like, yo, you got to go to Caraíva. You got to go to Praia. These are the things you have to do, get into kite surfing, whatever. And she's just like, Cory, you've got such an African vibe. You have to go to West Africa. She said, go to Senegal. And I was like, cool, I could go to Senegal and become fluent in French. So I started French lessons. I started doing all of these things. I was so pumped. I was like, I can't wait for West Africa. It's going to happen. And then I was in Brazil and I was watching sunset on the beach with my friend Sabrina. And just somehow we just started talking about Bali. And there was just a moment where I was like, I got to go to Bali. Then it was like that moment, all of these plans that I had, impulsively it came to me. I was like, no, I should, Bali makes a lot of sense. I want to see what it's like. And that change, going to Bali completely changed the course of my life, because now where I am personally is I want to be in environments with other people who work online and have online businesses, where for a lot of years that was something that wasn't important to me. And then I went to Bali and I experienced that. Now I'm in Mexico and I'm experiencing it. But all of that to say is, like, if you can just follow what feels good and you can notice what's working. And it was like, I want to go to Bali. I found a really great flight that was easy. I connected with some friends. I got a client 2 days later in Bali, speaking at her teacher training, it's just like everything falls into place. So if we can notice what's falling into place, that's really good. Also, if we can notice how we feel about it, that's going to be really, really good. And if we don't care what anyone else thinks about it, that's going to be the best of all. The next thing that I want to talk about also is another mantra that I have, which is everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. This is Esther Hicks. This is like the Esther Hicks that really, really got me into Esther Hicks. And it's just a mantra that I take with me on a daily basis, where whatever it is that's happening, if you can trick your mind and create a belief and have faith that everything is always working out for you, then it actually really doesn't, that's unconditional living, because it doesn't matter what's happening. It doesn't matter if you have to pay a lot of money to the government, or you get a brand new client who pays you a whole lot of money, or you achieve this physical thing, or you're sick and you're not feeling well. If you can maintain a faith and belief that everything is working out for you, then you realize that it actually, the decisions that you make don't matter at all. Like there's nothing serious going on here, and there's nothing serious going on here. And if everything is always working out for you, then you're always in the right place at the right time. And that's all that you need to know. It's just, I don't know if you can feel like the elation and the relief and the joy from me sharing this, but that's when you're living impulsively, you realize, okay, it doesn't really matter what decision I make, because everything's always working out for me. And my job is to be present to what's going on right now, and how do I feel about the decision that I'm making, and what's working for me and what's not working for me, and that my destiny is not fixed, and that however it is that it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it's just, I don't know, it's a blissful way of being, and it's a blissful way of living. And it's very, very different, because a lot of people don't live that way. But I have found in my life, some of the greatest things that have happened to me have happened when I've been in a moment and I'm like, oh, actually, I should probably stay here. Or I'm like, oh, I should actually probably leave right now. Or I should continue to work with this person, or I should not continue to work with this person. And it shows up in all of the decisions that we make. One of the most fun games, so I understand probably some people are listening who don't have, who haven't worked for years like I have, to be able to do what they want, when they want, where they want. You've got family, you've got obligations, you have whatever structure you have in place. Can you still live impulsively? The answer is, of course you can. And one of the most fun ways that I play the game of living impulsively is I'll just, you can have 2 hours or 3 hours to yourself. I think everyone can find a way to make that happen. And just start walking. You just start walking and see where you go, and be like, oh, I feel like turning down here. And I feel like, stopping into this coffee shop, or I feel like talking to this person, or I feel like this. And the most magical, amazing, wonderful things that have happened for me in my life always have started from something like that. And here, even now on a daily basis in Sayulita in Mexico, I don't have a plan. Okay, I go out, I throw in my tunes, I'm listening to Radiohead, I'm walking around, and I just let whatever happens happen. So I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going to try this juice place today. And then you go there, and then there's a person there you talk with who has a really interesting conversation, who recommends a book to you. Then you start reading that book, and then it's like, wow, now that because I've started reading that book, all of these other ideas come into my periphery and my mind, and everything changes. And it doesn't, for me, on a grand level, as someone who's dedicated their life to having the flexibility to live impulsively, yeah, it looks like, in the on the turn of a dime, I'm changing where I'm living. I'm changing the country that I'm living in. I'm changing the language that I'm speaking. I'm changing the food that I'm like. For me, there's a lot of things, but for all of us individually, you can live impulsively on a daily basis. And it's I obviously I subscribe to it, as you can tell from everything that I'm sharing, that I'm super passionate about living impulsively. It's something that lights me up, which again is a really, really good indication that this is what I should be doing and how I should be doing it. But also it's like, if I look back on my life and all of the random events that have led me to wherever I am right now, everything came from what I was present to in the moment, when I was actually in the present moment, like the actual moment that I'm alive right now, when I wasn't, thinking about the past or imagining for the future. And it was like, oh, how does this feel right now? And I think it's like, if there was a video game, Mortal Kombat, it would be like living impulsively versus what I should be doing. And that things are supposed to look a certain way. And I'll sort of just close with talking about things looking a certain way, because that to me is the most work I've done personally on myself in the past 2 years has been giving up this idea that things have to look a particular way. So things looking a particular way is being 38 years old, having a family, having a house, having kids, having a wife. That's how it's supposed to look for me. That's when I was born, and the intention for my parents was that I'm going to have that life, and that's the person that I'm going to be. And I've chosen not to be that person so far, because the criteria, my destiny is not fixed. I've noticed what works and what doesn't work naturally, what's working for me, what's not working for me. I follow what feels good, and I trust that everything is always working out for me. The reason why we want anything is because we think that we'll feel good in having it. So if you can feel good with whatever's happening now, and the decisions that you make inspire you and light you up and feel like the right thing that you're doing, and that you're in the right place at the right time, then you actually have no other work to do. And I find the opposite of living impulsively is thinking like, oh, it's supposed to look like this. If I have a girlfriend, she has to be really into fitness because I'm really into fitness, or whatever it is, that whatever belief that you have that you think is how your life is supposed to be. When you let go of the beliefs of how you think it's supposed to be, you let what is really in front of you right now take control, and you can participate in that. And I share this because this is the magic of the life that I've created, is everything that I've shared in this podcast episode. I'm not the wealthiest person. I'm not the most fit person. I'm not the happiest person. There's so many areas where I fall short, but the one thing that I have is like, I have this faith that everything is always working out for me, and I'm enjoying the journey, towards all of the things that I want. But most importantly, it's just like, to me, it's fucking fun, man. It's fun to just be like, oh, actually, this is the feeling that I have now, so I want to go with life down this feeling. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope that maybe there's something that's inspiring and something that will lead you to living life impulsively, if you feel called to do that. And so, sort of just as a summary to wrap all of it up about what this is and what it means, the whole idea of living impulsively is that you're present to an impulse or a drive in your life that pushes you that draws you to a certain direction. And is sort of like a gentle push of like, hey, what about this? Like, what about going to Mexico? And the idea is that you're going with the flow of life. You're going downstream. You're not going upstream. You're just going with the flow. Tap it in. Tap it in. Your destiny is not fixed. So there's nowhere you're supposed to be. There's nothing that you're supposed to be doing. Everything is happening from the present moment. And the question is, can you go with the flow in that particular present moment? Really helpful to notice what's working and what's not working. Are you pushing against something? Or are you allowing something? Are you going with it? Or are you going against it? And just objectively look, like for some reason, the credit card didn't go through and the Visa store was closed, and all of these things that don't happen. How do I feel when I make this decision? Does it light me up? Does it feel light? Does it feel easy? Does it feel aligned with the person that I want to be? And everything is always working out for me. Everything is always working out for me. So I love y'all. Stay different. Be good. Thank you for listening. And peace.